Welcome back to episode 3 of Two Guys with Questionable Credentials. I'm Adam, and Tom is with me.
Tom is here.
Tom is here.
It's been so long. It feels like it's been at least 5 minutes since we recorded an episode.
I think it may have been a little bit longer than that. But we are going to do a little bit of a different format today. Before it was more of a conversation with us sharing our opinions on favorite movies we didn't like as much. Our last episode, we talked about Star Wars characters that we enjoyed and the reasons behind that. Today, we're going to dive into a topic that Tom really enjoys, and I'm not going to spoil anything other than just to turn the next part of the episode over to him.
Alrighty. Well, it was awfully kind of you to say, the way you worded that, because I think my wife would say unhealthy obsession with personality and the type of person I am, and on a subject that really doesn't truly matter, I guess. So I wanted to talk about lightsabers. More especially...
Are those glowy stick thingies that they occasionally use in Disney movies?
Right.
I am going to get so many threats about what I just said.
So, there's a variety of different colors. And obviously, in canon and legends, they existed. And so, in legends, it was interesting. There was this game, Adam. It was called Knights of the Old Republic. This is where I first learned about it. It was an RPG, and sparing a lot of details. At one point, your character trains to become a Jedi. And you build the lightsaber, but you need a crystal. At this point, in the Legends material, the crystals and their color was already pre-existing. Like, you could literally walk into a cave and be like, oh, blue, I like blue, here we go. Whereas now in canon, the idea is that the crystals are all clear, and when you pour your force energy into it, it picks its color.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that in the Visions series, where they are talking about Kyber crystals and their first joining with the Jedi, and I think that's very well done.
Yeah. I can't find a complete list either way, of all of the colors of lightsabers and what they all mean. They kind of share the same meaning in both contexts, like legends and canon. But so I guess the thing I want to start with is that there were three colors you could choose, at least in the game, and depending on the lightsaber color you chose, determined the class of Jedi you were. So, for instance, blue. Blue, you were known as a Jedi Guardian. Jedi Guardians, they tended more to focus on combat with the lightsaber. That's not to say that they didn't rely on the Force. They just, their expertise was in, lightsaber combat. Which, if you look at the movies and cartoons, it adds up. You think about the Obi-Wan and Anakin, even Count Dooku before he turned to the Sith. Green, on the other hand, was the classification known as a Jedi Consular, and they focused more on their connection to the Force and using the Force to maybe resolve issues without combat, but likewise, they were still trained to fight as well. And then there was Yellow. Yellow was known as a Jedi Sentinel. These Jedi were rare and actually considered to be dangerous because they tended to have an expertise in something outside the Jedi Order that made them unique, like expertise in other weapons, or maybe certain skills that
Like if one could be like a healer or more of a diplomat or more technical.
Sure, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's why that or kind of like how, as I understand it at least, at the end of Rise of Skywalker, I know, but Rey has a yellow lightsaber, which makes sense because while she is a Jedi, she and can use the Force. Her expertise was in she was like a natural like mechanic, flying ships, and they kind of just had a skill that wasn't directly connected.
No, and I like the way that this is being presented because the Jedi Order is its own insular society, and everyone has a part to play in it, and it works very well together. So your most dominant colors, the ones you see the most, are the ones that you need the most skills in, whether they're guardians or more counselors, and the rare colors are your more specialized. They play a very unique role in things, and I think just to get away from Star Wars for just a quick second on this. You see that in so many other sci-fi novels or fantasy novels where you have a very defined society going back, whether it's from based on medieval times or something. So I like how this take on lightsaber colors goes. It's an interesting take on it.
Yeah, and like I said, as far as I can tell in canon, like the whole class system doesn't exist anymore. I could be wrong. I've tried to look it up, but there's still also disagreements because in Legends there were any color you can imagine in different shades, and there was a character named Lobaka. He was Chewbacca's nephew, who was a Jedi, and he had a bronze-colored lightsaber. And I believe that was also very rare. Some people online say it signifies strength, which I guess makes sense for a Wookiee. But then I guess talking about canon, so purple, the purple lightsaber.
Gotta love purple.
Mr. Samuel Jackson. Obviously, I'm sure everybody knows by now that the reason purple was made was because Sam Jackson really wanted a purple lightsaber because he loves purple and everything he does. But in the expanded material, and not Legends, like this is in canon too, the reason they justify his purple lightsaber is that he has managed perfect balance with the Force. He obviously, so
that would be a rare trait. That would be a rare trait,
which makes sense if you think about red, blue, purple, and it's interesting because if you read like a great example of this is if you read the novelization for Revenge of the Sith. When you get to the part where they go to arrest the Chancellor and they get in that fight scene. The book obviously they changed the book to to improve upon the story, because that fight scene is not especially great. But one of the things it talks about is that Mace Windu is a master of this lightsaber form known as, I think it's Vapad. Weird name. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. But basically the idea was that he was able to channel his inner darkness and the darkness of those around him to increase his fighting, fighting ability. So in the book, where in the movie it shows, Palpatine seems to just slowly be like jump, poke, and kill 3 guys, no problem. In the book, it's more described that Palpatine is just moving so fast, and the only reason that Mace is able to keep up with him is that he is pulling the dark side energy that Palpatine is giving off into himself and then using it to keep up. Like it says in the book that when Anakin walks into the room, he doesn't see people. He just sees the flashing purple and red lights of the lightsabers crashing. Or so we talked about purple, yellow, orange.
Yeah, let's talk about Orange, because that's something that I think took a lot of Star Wars fans for a loop whenever Ahsoka came out.
Yeah, so there still is technically no real explanation. Like, all Dave Filoni said was that he wanted to clarify that it was orange, because some people thought it was orange red or it was an off shade of red.
It was sunset.
But yeah, but the idea was that they were kind of individuals. They weren't like, they obviously weren't Jedi. But they weren't being seduced by the dark side. It's kind of like an individuality, I guess.
And that makes a lot of sense with the context in which they are. Their role is they're bounty hunters. They're mercenaries. I'm sorry, they're not. They are mercenaries, not bounty hunters. I misspoke. So they are two individuals. They are their own order. They are not Jedi. They're not Sith. They are their own unique order. So I really like the orange.
Me too. I've always liked, because I also thought it was kind of similar to, like, kind of red and yellow, like kind of a balance also.
Yeah,
but that's my own personal head canon, I guess, on it.
Yeah. Well, plus Baylan Skoll, his character very much fits. If you're going to, there's always a character in Star Wars that you identify a specific color lightsaber with. Luke is green, Vader and Palpatine are red, Mace Windu is purple, Kenobi is blue, Yoda is green, Baylan Skoll is orange.
And I'd be curious to know.
Forgive everyone for the background noise. My cat feeders just went off.
I'd be curious to know, because I haven't read the book, but I did a little bit of research in it for this video or podcast. That other than Baylan and Shin-Hati, I think her name was?
Shin-Hati, yeah.
They're orange lightsabers, which they haven't confirmed where the crystals came from. There was a book, I don't remember the name, but it's a story focusing on Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon. And they are on a planet, and this planet is... all these weapons are based on these orange crystals that I guess they're called Fool's Kyber. Like, I guess it's not... I'm not entirely sure exactly what that means.
When you say Fool's Gold, it's something very similar to the genuine article, but it's not. But it contains elements of it.
And as I understand, the people on the planet used it to power these energy weapons that were strong enough to deflect, like they were resist lightsabers. But when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan swapped their crystals for these Fool's Kyber, they were able, like, the only thing that could defeat the crystal energy was itself.
Mm.
I don't know much more about that. The one that I'm really kind of excited to talk about, actually, or kind of both at the same time, is red and white. Red, so in Legends, there were no naturally formed red crystals. The Sith had to create their own crystals, and I can't remember what that process was called.
That's why our credentials are questionable.
Yeah. It was, I'm sure it'll hit me later and I'll shout it out, but synthetic. They were synthetic. Wow, that was not that hard to remember. They were synthetic crystals. They made them. And likewise, also in Legends, Luke Skywalker had to use that knowledge to create his green crystal, because at that time, you weren't able to get crystals out in the wild. Mm. The Empire had locked down all the planets and so on. But what Disney did with the red crystal, which I think is a really good, really cool move, is that the idea is that a Sith a Sith weapon is not gifted, it's taken. And so Darth Vader, when he goes to make his crystal, or his lightsaber, he kills a Jedi, takes his lightsaber, and he does what's called bleeding. And he pours all of his hate and the dark side into the crystal till it bleeds and turns red.
Kind of like what we saw in Acolyte.
Yes. Kind of questionable how that worked in that show.
There's a lot of... Without going into that rabbit hole, that Acolyte is its own rabbit hole, which we're not going to go down today. And there's so many questions surrounding that.
Right. But then lastly, though, White. Well, not lastly.
Just before I know you're going to get into White and everything, I just had this flash in my memory. Wasn't White the lightsabers that the Temple guards used in the Jedi Temple? I remember something with like the Grand Inquisitor, because he was a Temple guard, and for some reason like a white lightsaber or a light weapon, something like that.
So the Jedi Guard, or the Jedi Guardians, or with
Temple guards.
Temple guards, thank you. They used yellow lightsabers.
Oh, okay, all right.
And actually, they made a point. George Lucas said that
I'm just misremembering.
Their yellow lightsabers are like the only real yellow. Like Ahsoka has a green lightsaber, but also it's like a yellowish lime green. They made a point of being like, it's not yellow. But
well, I think whenever you're a content creator, like an actual content creator for Star Wars, you can come up with whatever you want and justify it however you want, because guess what? You're the one who did it.
Yeah. But White, on the other hand, White was... Oh, I remember. No. You asked me about white crystals, because you may have seen pictures in Legends. Sorry, I'm talking about it all the time. But there was actually a group of Imperial Jedi called the Imperial Knights. And they wore red armor. They all used white or silver lightsabers. So that may also be what you're thinking of. But White in canon is what happens when you take a Sith crystal and you heal it. You purify it.
Okay, yeah.
Ahsoka Tano obviously did that. She's probably the most famous. I know that in the High Republic books, there is a character that has a white lightsaber, and she, they talk about the purification, but they don't really focus on her. And actually in the High Republic, they're much more open about how you use the Force, and that's why you see so many more lightsaber colors, because they're all allowed to experience the Force in their own way before they kind of take this dogmatic approach, and everyone's limited to blue or green unless you're Mace Windu.
Right.
And then I'll be honest with you, I don't know much about the Darksaber. It's supposed to be the only black crystal, made by the only Mandalorian Jedi.
I think we just leave it at that, because it's, let's just leave it at that. It's just freaking cool.
Yeah. And like the fact that it's kind of like a samurai sword.
Yes.
But as I understand, there are more purposes to these Kyber crystals than just the lightsabers.
I was saying, circle back for a quick second, because we've seen this a lot in the Visions, Star Wars Visions that's come out, is how in canon the Kyber crystals get their colors.
I can't believe I forgot to talk about Star Wars Visions. If I dive into this, we may not have time to talk about your thing. So I don't know if
go ahead. If we have a few minutes, but I think because this is what a lot of people have been exposed to, is the Kyber crystals get their color based on the person.
Right. And I think it's called the Ninth Jedi.
Yes.
The episode. Mm-hmm. I love that because it's kind of based on somewhere. There's an early draft of Return of the Jedi that talks about the scene when Vader inspects Luke's lightsaber. Even though it's his lightsaber, when he ignites it, it's in his position. It feels the dark side in the crystal, or the blade is red. likewise in that show, based on your connection to the Force, you have the lightsaber, or the crystal color is whatever you align with. And in that episode, and I love it. There's I think 3 Jedi and a handful of Sith. And when one of the Sith, who actually was a Jedi who was undercover, kind of makes his connection that he's like, this is wrong. In real time, his lightsaber goes from red and changes to purple. I don't know.
Because they were saying that he was corrupted by the force of the others.
Yes, the hatred that he got from being around the others.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that really wasn't as long as I thought it was. I love that. I love that idea, like the changing colors based on who's holding it.
Well, it makes it individual, and it really cements, because the Kyber crystals are, they also draw energy from the Force, so it makes sense that their energy of the person and the Kyber crystals align. So, and whenever we came up with the idea of this episode, was Tom, this is obviously a subject that you really enjoy talking about, and I think we could agree on that. I've learned a lot from the conversation we've been having, but I just want to touch on kind of the more practical side of the Kyber crystals real quick, and for anyone who hasn't gone back and either listened to the audiobook or read the book, the book is called Catalyst, and I know I've talked about it before. It's a prequel to Rogue One, and it is canon, and it talks a lot about how Galen Erso, at first, he's trying to replicate a Kyber crystal, a synthetic crystal, for creating an energy program to help worlds, so that they have plenty of energy, clean energy, however you want to look at it. And that's the basis of his research. And he has some success, but he's never able to fully get it. Then, whenever Krennic finds him and brings him into the Emperor's energy program, which is a cover story for developing the super weapon for the Death Star, Erso in his lab is, one day he's working on this, and Krennic's like, yeah, I'm sending you a whole bunch of stuff. It's going to really help with your research and everything. And these big crates arrive, and they are all Kyber crystals, all various sizes. And then he opens one box, and it is just a bunch of small pebble-sized Kyber crystals that are all smooth and refined and finished. And it kind of hits him after a few minutes of, I know where these came from. These are all the Kyber crystals that were taken from the Jedi who were killed from Order 66. Because this is all post Order 66. This is the beginning. We're only a few years into the Empire at this point. And Erso, he's like, I feel the pain from these crystals. He's not force. I mean, everyone's a little force sensitive, but he's not particularly, and he feels the pain from these crystals because of what had happened in their presence. And then he goes along, and eventually we do get the Death Star, and we do get the super weapon from it, and then we also see the super weapon from from Starkiller Base, because that planet obviously has a relationship to Kyber crystals. So it goes to see the parallels where you're trying to do something good, because obviously the Jedi used the Kyber crystals to defend the galaxy. Galen Erso was trying to use Kyber crystals to develop an energy program to benefit the galaxy, and then in the end everything is just corrupted into the Sith taking the Kyber crystals to rule the galaxy, and the Emperor's taking it to build the battle station and have rule the galaxy. Well, that's kind of what Sith do. So I find the lightsabers and the Kyber crystals interesting, but from a very different way than you do, Tom. And I think that's perfectly great, because we have two different perspectives on it. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's pretty much everything I have to say about that. I don't know about you, but if you have any last comments you want to make.
No, I think it was another good discussion today, and I maybe we'll try to do this format again with something because I know we obviously have different interests that the other one does not know much about. I kind of look more in canon and more grounded subjects, and you look some more towards legends and the more mythical. What makes Star Wars Star Wars? It's just something that it's out there, and it's the fantasy of it all that we can relate to. So I believe we're going to kind of take a little bit of a hard left coming up in a future episode. We're going to talk about something completely different. I'm not going to spoil the surprise because we don't even know what the surprise is yet.
So yeah, so if you have an idea of something you want to hear two guys kind of just make it up as they go along, please leave it in the comments. If you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. What lightsaber crystal or color would you want to have or think you would have?
Also find us on Spotify, Amazon, and Apple.
Yep. And you can email us at twoguysnocreds@gmail.com. And I think that will do it. So I lied. I still don't have a good sign off. So, all right.
Until next time, people.
Goodbye.